4 U.S. service members are dead because of an illegal and unjustifiable war that Donald Trump is waging. And instead of talking about them, he is instead going on about his ballroom and wanting to give himself the Medal of Honor in a rambling, confused, sickly speech, which Donald Trump walked away from while the press are yelling questions at him. The President of the United States showed us all that he is in deep cognitive decline and that he could not give one shit about any of us. Donald Trump is going to war right now because he doesn't want us talking about his pedo protection, his terrible economy, or any of the other many shortcomings of his administration, but it is also because he just doesn't care. He is happy to sacrifice our lives for a distraction from the headlines he hates or to help out Bibi Netanyahu. That is what Donald Trump is doing right now, and he made it incredibly clear as he began his speech talking about a ballroom that has been his obsession, and of course it is, because all Donald Trump cares about is himself.
See that nice drape? When that comes down right now, you see a very, very deep hole. But in about a year and a half from now, you're going to see a very, very beautiful building. And there's your entrance to it right there. In fact, it looks so nice, I think I'll save money on the doors because it can't get more beautiful than that. I picked those drapes in my first term. I always like gold. But I think we can save a lot of money. I just saved curtains. But and it'll be spectacular. It'll be the most beautiful ballroom. I believe it because I built many a ballroom. I believe it's going to be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world. And when you hear all that hammering out there, you know why the First Lady is not thrilled exactly. She said, "Will the pile drivers ever stop?" You know, they go from 6 in the morning till 11:30 in the evening. Can you imagine? Here. You know what? To me, that's a beautiful sound. She doesn't like it. I love it. You know what? To me, other than here, because we're donating it, not a penny to the taxpayer. It'll be under budget, ahead of schedule. It'll be 400 million or less. Most people say 400 million or more. No, it'll be less. But when I hear that sound, that beautiful sound behind me, it means money, so I like it. But my wife isn't thrilled. She said, "This is getting crazy." I said, "Don't worry about it. We'll be all finished up in a few months." But now for the reason that we're gathered this morning to recognize
Well, quite frankly, it's a great ballroom, and we love the ballroom, and we're going to look at the ballroom, and you said, people are dead. I don't care. I really can't work myself up to care because then I mentioned the ballroom, and that was most of the speech. That is what we heard from Donald Trump, and he did the meme, the Lord Farquaad from Shrek. Many of you will die, but that is a price I am willing to pay at the beginning of this illegal war that he has started because Donald Trump doesn't care. He would sacrifice as many lives as it took to get himself a distraction from the Epstein files and so much else. This is an illegal Epstein operation that Donald Trump is carrying out right now. And also, it is incredibly popular. Not just that, it is also making everything worse. Does Donald Trump think oil prices rising 13, 15, 20%? I don't know. They continue to go up is going to help him make a better case in the economy. I don't know. It just seems like what he is after right now is a temporary distraction, but a long-term plan for the consolidation of power. He already brought up just 2 days ago how he don't want people with anti-American ideologies to vote. Is that people who oppose this illegitimate and harmful war? I don't know. But what Donald Trump clearly knows is that he thinks he's quite frankly, the bestest boy because he was talking about, before he just walked away, exposing just how sick he is. We're going to take a look at a photo of his neck, why he wants to give himself the Medal of Honor.
It's a great honor. There's no greater. I tried for myself. I've tried numerous times to get one by myself. I keep getting shut down. They say, "You can't do it, sir." Bad protocol. Very bad. I would say the worst. But I'm only kidding. You don't have to say I'm only kidding, otherwise the press will come out with it, which they actually did once. Donald Trump wants a Congressional Medal of Honor, but he's been shut down. But now you are brave, amazing people.
I'm not surprised that Donald Trump wants to give himself an award that he doesn't deserve and didn't earn. That's kind of the Trump presidency is foreign leaders knowing that he is a very easily swayed, gullible little boy and that they can pretend to love him so much and give him a medal and then maybe he'll reduce his pretend tariff. That doesn't surprise me. But what does surprise me is that no one in this administration of yes men and women have already agreed to give it to him. Like, I'm surprised that we haven't seen Kristi Noem in a moment of fear for her job say, well, we should why not just give it to him? Maybe he'll forget about the fact that I had 2 people murdered in the street and that everyone in America hates me and makes fun of my Botox. I'm surprised that hasn't happened, but it hasn't. But we still have time, unfortunately, in this presidency. But Donald Trump did not have time today for reporters asking him legitimate questions about his illegitimate war. He just walked away and in that moment exposed how sick and confused he is. Journalist Aaron Rupar posted this photo writing, "Wow, this is new. Trump has a significant rash-like injury on his neck today in addition to his disfigured and discolored hand." It's all very gross. If you can look at his neck there by his collar, it just looks like his skin is falling off. So a clearly kind of dancing, confused, out of it, looking around, not sure what's happening Trump walks past the many questions from reporters that could be about the fact that Donald Trump's first Justice Department decided that it would shut down a state probe of an Epstein estate in New Mexico. So we have that, and then Donald Trump did that in his first Justice Department, of course, has covered up the Epstein files completely. In a second, they could be asking questions about his war with Iran, its impact on the economy, why Pete Hegseth continues to lie, if he cares whether or not more service members will die. Clearly he doesn't. They could be asking Trump a million questions, but he just walks past, not knowing what's happening or really not caring. And that is the Trump presidency. It is either one of two things, that either that he doesn't care or he's just not going to answer. And it doesn't matter. And they think that at this point, they are entitled to not do so, that they are entitled to not answer our questions, that they are entitled to do whatever they please. And I think a lot of that is, as we've discussed so much with the corruption, the point of doing it so publicly, because Donald Trump thinks if he's maybe caught in an illegal act, it's a lot worse than if he just does it publicly, because the mainstream press has this obsession with, with finding out or looking at things that, really don't need any observation. When it was a Biden secret decline story that they were pretending to push, then they were all over it. But when it's Donald Trump's very public cognitive decline, when it's out there in the open, when it's just there for the taking, they'd rather find something else, make up something else. And that is going to continue to be the story as we see greater acquisition of existing media outlets by the right-wing billionaires who bought Donald Trump, his presidency, who continue to try to prop it up. That will come as no surprise. The media getting worse and worse and worse in its defense of Donald Trump, allowing him to deflect, allowing him, confused and sickly, to walk away without raising questions about the health that is leading him to do so. Because it really does start there. Donald Trump has become more erratic than ever. Donald Trump sees the presidency, as he's quite literally stated, as something keeping him alive. And so why wouldn't he try to extend it by starting a war that he remarked would lead him to maybe a little longer stay in the White House last year with President Zelensky? Remember that? Oh, if there's a war, you can't have elections. You couldn't possibly have elections. So if later in my term we're at war, well, I'll leave that for a later date. With the remarks from Donald Trump. So the guy who's trying to make sure that only those with passports can vote, and that Marco Rubio and him can decide if those passports get renewed or are legitimate or not, that guy, he probably wants a reason to not have us vote. The person who tried last year and failed to cut up our districts, he probably doesn't want voting to go away. That wouldn't be a little beneficial for him. But this is a confused man who shouldn't be confused about the fact that it was just released in new polling that this is maybe the most unpopular action so far of the Trump administration. A huge majority of Americans disapproving of Donald Trump, which is why it is more important than ever for Democrats not to talk about process. Well, why didn't you ask us to start this war? I don't think that's what people care about. It is important. It is Donald Trump trying to consolidate power in the executive. That has been the long-term strategy and story of his presidency. But more than just process, we should talk about the people who have lost their lives and will continue to. You saw Republican Representative Mike Lawler say that Democrats now have to fund DHS. We have to. We would be putting Democrats would somehow be putting Americans in harm's way if we did not fund DHS. Well, Mike, it sounds like you're saying that Donald Trump has made the country less safe within a legal war that he started. Is that why we should fund DHS now more than ever we need to? Is because the country's less safe? Well, that's exactly what it sounds like you're saying. That is what we as Democrats should be saying. And it's certainly what my good friend, someone who I think we should check out this clip because we have the past couple of days, Jason Crow had to say this morning.
Curious where the support is for this resolution and for a vote.
Well, we're pushing it really hard because that's what Americans deserve. I've seen this movie before. We all have, right? And how this goes is elites and leaders in Washington talk tough and bang the war drums. And then what happens is working class kids like me and the people that I fought with Iraq and Afghanistan actually have to get into planes and helicopters and pick up rifles and do it. Right. So I've had it with that cycle, that endless cycle of non-accountability. I mean, look, Friday night, Donald Trump filmed this tough video where he talked about war and the costs of war and how hard it's going to be and how we're going to lose troops. Then he literally went behind the curtain and hosted $1 million a plate dinner dance party at Mar-a-Lago. That tells you everything you need to know.
Let's bring in right now to the conversation staff writer for The Atlantic, Frank Foer. Frank, I'm going to...
More so than just talking about the process, which again, I understand its validity and its importance. This is what matters. Donald Trump, in the same way that he has always literally killed poor Americans, working class Americans, with the massive tax cuts he's given away, or any number of other policies, Donald Trump is happy to go see working class kids die for a war that we did not need to start. So Donald Trump could get the media to stop talking about the fact that he is a pedo who hung out with pedos and is covering up for other pedos. That's this administration.